All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. Today is Thursday, May 7th, 2026, and we've got a jam-packed smorgasbord episode for you guys today. We're going to go over some news and notes from around the league. We're going to take a look at some of the offseason betting lines and see how Vegas views your Detroit Lions. And then we're going to take a look at some answered questions for the Lions offseason and then finish up by I wanted to look at some sliding doors moments from the Dan Campbell era. I was going through all the games from the Dan Campbell era, and I think I found the most pivotal game in that era. So we're gonna talk about that, just a little bit of a thought exercise, and then we're gonna play at the end a game of Guess 10. I don't know if that's what we're calling it, but
Sure. I'm
I
in.
I just when I was doing the prep sheet, I was like, okay, we're just gonna call it Guess 10. So stick around for that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Richard Silva. Richard, how are we doing today? We are fully in the off season now, and I think I might have even said this last week, but now it's like especially dead. We've only had one piece of relevant Lions news over the last week, and it didn't even actually have anything to do with the Lions. It was just a former player signing with another team. So, how are you doing in Richard Land over there?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day outside. I was at the announcement this morning for the PWHL expanding to Detroit. So Detroit will get another professional sports team. LCA will get another professional sports team. They're gonna have four by 2029, which is crazy. And especially because they're all of the four seasons overlap between the
Mm-hmm.
WNBA, the Women's Hockey League, the NBA, and the NHL. So good luck to whoever is scheduling those games.
And they have concerts like pretty much every night that there isn't a game. So,
Right. They actually said
uh,
today, because when the PWHL has played, like they played like one-off games before in Detroit, I think they played them either before or after the Red Wings a couple times. Like they did a doubleheader, and they were like,
mhm.
"Yeah, we might just have to do that again." Like it might just be
Yeah,
some doubleheader days on the ice.
yeah. What's amazing is all this revenue that they're bringing into the arena in District Detroit. Still not finished. That area next to Little Caesars Arena. Still a parking lot. Quite interesting. Shout out Chris Illich. All right, let's get into some news here to start off the episode. DJ Reader, Lions defensive tackle, former Lions defensive tackle, is signing with the New York Giants for 2 years, 12.5 million, which is more than both Richard and I expected. I know, kind of going into the draft when the Lions hadn't really solved their defensive tackle deficiencies, at least their reserve deficiencies there. They were, um, there was I saw some people asking like, could they just bring DJ Reader back? And I thought it was a possibility going into the draft. Even after the draft, they took Skylar Gill Howard. We'll talk about defensive tackle more in depth later on in the episode, but um, not at this price. Like at this price, if this is what he was asking for, if this is what he was demanding, I don't think it would. I would imagine it was never in the cards for him to return to the Lions. Like I said, 2 years, 12.5 million. It's a pretty good chunk of change for a guy who, doesn't rack up a lot of counting stats, but he does a lot of the dirty work that shows up on the film and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't think Jack Campbell becomes an All-Pro last season without a guy like Reader, right? Like the best linebackers have the gap stuffers in front of them at defensive tackle that eat up space and make the job of the linebacker a little bit easier. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean that Jack Campbell's success is attached to DJ Reader. He still has a couple pretty good ones in front of him, and Aleem and Tyler Williams, who's growing. But yeah, no, Reader got paid a pretty penny, and I just think, like you said, like that just ran counter to everything that the Lions offseason has been about, which has been getting younger and getting cheaper. And Reader checked none of those boxes, kind of like the Amik Robertson deal, where he got, I think, a little bit more than you and I were both expecting. And it was like, yeah, he's approaching 30. Reader is over 30. Um, but Amik is approaching 30, and the Lions were just not going to give him $8 million a year. And I think that's a similar case here. The Lions were not going to give DJ Reader approximately $6 million a year this offseason, when only I think Cade Mays is the only contract that or the only free agent that they've signed this offseason that's higher than a $5 million average annual value. Larry Borum is second at $5 million. So they were not in the market to spend money this offseason. So yeah, I don't think it was ever much of a reality that Reader could return. I will say I am interested, and we'll probably never know this answer. Is the Giants desperately need defensive tackle. Like after trading
Mm-hmm.
Dexter Lawrence, like needed it. So I think Reader kind of and his agent held the cards and kind of held the leverage in those negotiations. So I'm curious how much that drove up his price. Like previously, I know he visited the Ravens. I would imagine the Lions had some level of interest, like let him know, like, hey, like at this price, if you're willing, we'll take you back. But
Yeah.
if not, appreciate you for the last 2 years. I'm curious what it was before the Giants, what his market was before the Giants traded Dexter Lawrence.
Yeah, we were texting back and forth yesterday, and I said I wonder what all the offers were from a team that weren't like have a big glowing sign above their head that said we need a big defensive tackle to come to come eat 500 snaps for us, because he was a reliable player for the Lions over the last 2 seasons, and coming off the injury situation that he had, I mean it was a perfect recipe for him to get hurt and then everybody to be like, way to go, Brad, because he paid 22 million over 2 years for this guy, and that just didn't happen. He missed 2 games when he was rehabbing from the injury that he came to Detroit with. He missed the first 2 games here, and then he didn't miss another game.
I believe, right?
Yeah, the torn quad. So, like, no joke injury. Then he comes back and he plays all but 2 games over his 2 seasons in Detroit. And again, a guy who definitely rubbed some fans the wrong way on his way out of town, just with some Twitter comments, and it was a frustrating season for everybody. It really, I thought some of that stuff that was happening, like the DJ Reader kind of going at it with fans and stuff like that. I thought part of me was like, well, that's not a good sign for the culture. But I think last year was just really frustrating for everybody, top to bottom, and some people handled it differently than others. I don't think that played into him not coming back. Like I said, I think that was strictly a financial thing on his part, and good for him for waiting it out, because he ends up getting, again, 2 years, 12.5 million, with incentives that could take him up to 15.5 million over those 2 seasons, according to multiple reports. So it's good for him. The Lions aren't going to have an easy time replacing him. You mentioned Tyreek Williams and Aleem McNeil. Yeah, those guys are going to be your defensive, starters. But when it comes to like those rotational guys, they don't really have a lot of beef behind those 2 starters. They have Mekhi Wingo and Skylar Gilhoward and Levi Onwuzurike, who's long, but maybe not like he's not like a double team eater or anything like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him a run stuffer, but for that reason, which is why on the 53-man roster that I did, I had Jay Tufele making it, because who else are they going to have?
Beef?
Yeah, literally that. To your point on the frustration, it was interesting because the Lions' run defense had been really good for probably like 75% of Reader's time in Detroit, and then the last 5 games, it kind of when they really needed those wins to make the playoffs, it fell off a cliff. I do think so. That's like Reader was almost for the last 2 years the face of run defense, because that's like his thing. Mm-hmm. But a lot of their issues at the end of last year was like runs to the perimeter. Man, they couldn't hold an edge like for anything. Like like they. That Steelers game where was it Jaylen Warren that ripped off 2 45-yard touchdowns, and it was just off tackle, goodbye both times. So maybe I don't want to say the anger was misplaced, because the team went 9-8. Like, I understand fans being mad at everyone, but I don't know if it was so much interior squishiness that did this team in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on from DJ Reader. We got a schedule update. Well, not really a schedule update. By the way, for the record, the NFL schedule should be out in like the next week or two. Usually, like in my head, I think like May 11th, May 12th through the 15th is generally the time where I have it in my head. Okay, start looking out for the schedule release on this date. We still don't know who the Lions are playing overseas. We still don't know officially when the Lions are playing overseas. It kind of seems like it might be that second weekend in November, but I guess we'll have to keep waiting and seeing. But our friends over at Sharp Football Analysis, Warren Sharp, I should say more specifically, who, if you're on Twitter, you might not like Warren Sharp because he's kind of a clown on there, but he has good data. So he is. He's like he acts like he's never watched a football game before. Like he's like Mr. like analytics, all this other stuff, and then he'll be like, oh, what do you mean this isn't passing? And it's just like, dude loves clickbait. I'm sorry.
For the record, I don't co-sign that. I don't have an opinion on this.
Whatever. So the Lions, according to Warren Sharp, again, good data, good analysis off the data. But again, his Twitter account is ran by somebody who looks like it's their first year watching the NFL. It makes no sense to me. Anyways, according to Mr. Warren Sharp, the Lions have the number one easiest schedule in the league in 2026 based on Vegas projected win totals. As a reminder, their home games are against Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, New England, the Jets, Tennessee, and the New York Giants. And then their road games are Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, Atlanta, Buffalo, Carolina, Miami, and Arizona. Are you buying that this schedule will end up being one of the easiest towards next season, or do you think just by the sheer amount of divisional tough games that they could have coming up that this will be a little bit overstated in terms of how easy, quote unquote, the schedule is?
I don't know if it'll be the easiest, but I am expecting it to be by the end of next season top 10 quote unquote easiest in terms of I guess like just raw win loss percentage at the end of the year. They play the NFC South, they play the AFC East. Obviously the East has the Bills and the Patriots, but they also have a couple stinkers in the Jets and the Dolphins, and like those teams might be picking 1-2 next year in the draft. And I don't know, like so last season in 2025 the Lions had 4 opponents that finished the previous year with a record under 500. So in 2024, 4 teams finished with a record under 500. The Lions played them the following year. For this upcoming year in 26, 9 teams on their schedule finished under 500 from last year, and none of them in the division, like we said, and that accounts for 6 games. So of Detroit's 14 opponents, 9 of them finished under 500 last year. And of course, teams improve. What's the stat that like 6 new teams get into the playoffs every year? That's the average. It's like the parity. It's always changing. But when I do look at some of the teams, like of course, like do I think the New Orleans Saints are going to be pushovers? No. Am I going to pick the Lions to beat the Saints at home? Yeah. Until I see something, until I see like the Saints offense just take off and explode with Tyler Shuck, I'm not going to predict the Lions to lose to them at home.
Were you watching the Saints at the end of last season? Tyler Shuck has arrived, brother.
It was all right. It was all right. It was like, oh, this is pretty good. No, but I mean the same thing with the Titans. Like I'm not going to pick the Lions to lose to the Titans at home. I'm not going to pick the Lions to lose to the Jets at home. Probably not even the Giants, to be honest with you. Though I think out of those 4 teams, the Giants are.
But the Giants might be a wagon next year, so you're not 100% sure.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and then you look at some of the teams on the road schedule as well. Of course, you have the division games, but you get to go to the Cardinals, who I think are potentially going to be a disaster in year 1 under LaFleur. Brissett won't show up to camp or to
hilarious.
To
is Jacoby Brissett holding out the funniest holdout of all time?
So
it's got to be up there in terms of value versus. I don't even know versus anything, but is he the lowest value player to ever hold out? With all due respect to Jacoby Brissett,
I mean,
he's
surprised.
A backup quarterback.
I mean, I was certainly surprised. I don't know who exactly is going to start. It might be Carson Beck. Like Carson Beck might mess around and be this team starter week 1 because they drafted him in the second round. Gardner Minshew is there, so maybe that's more likely. But Beck is like 25, so why else would you draft him? So, but anyway, so yeah, you get to visit the Cardinals, who might be a disaster. The Falcons, who I think might probably going to be maybe in that mid-ish range. Panthers, kind of a step above the Falcons in my mind, but anything can happen in the NFC South. I saw a tweet that said it was a meme, and it was the NFC South. It was all 4 logos with the voice bubble coming out of them, and it said, "Man, this division sucks. We're the only good team here." And it's the Saints feel that way, the Panthers feel that way, the Falcons feel that way, and the Bucs feel that way. All of them feel that same way about each other. So I think that bodes well for the Lions. That's a long way of saying that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this, a lot of times strength of schedule is based on last year's schedule or last year's results, right? Like you mentioned, X amount of teams that they played had a losing record. This is all based on Vegas projected win totals. So while Vegas, they get it wrong every now and then, but this is actually like a forward thinking way of thinking about the strength of schedule as well. So yeah, a lot of these teams, to your point, not projected to be very good next season, especially that home schedule. Like, you got New England, they'll be good. Tennessee could be good. Maybe it's a stinky home schedule outside of the divisional games in New England and maybe Tampa.
Sure. for perspective, so of course we all know, because at the end of last season that was a big thing going into Week 18, whether or not the Lions were going to get the third or fourth place schedule. The Lions, because they finished fourth, will play the Titans, the Giants, and the Cardinals. Had they finished third, they would have played the Colts, the Commanders, and the 49ers. You can, I guess, make an argument depending on how you feel about like whether or not Jaden Daniels is going to stay healthy between the Commanders and the Giants. Who would you rather face? Maybe it's coin flip, but I think very clearly you'd rather face the Titans than the Colts, and you'd rather face the Cardinals than the 49ers. So
Yeah, even with the uncertainty of Jaden Daniels. I mean, I don't know, man. I like me some Jackson Dart, some Cam Scatterboot, but
yeah, no, I think if I don't know, I think if Daniels is healthy, I don't know. It depends on Dart, but yeah.
I also think that like just the trauma of Jaden Daniels and what he has caused to this team. I think you're more afraid of the Washington Commanders. I mean, God forbid, Jameis has to start a game somewhere in this mix. Is he back with the Giants?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. He has to be, right? Because I don't think he was a free agent. Yeah, he's currently with the Giants.
All right, well, there you go. Maybe we'll get another Jameis game.
Yeah.
I mean, frustrating process, but great result for the Lions in that game. That was arguably the most thrilling game of the season if you just put aside the expectations of what you thought you were going to do to that team.
Yeah, no, when that game started, I think the opening drive was I know Wan'Dale Robinson caught it. Was it just a flea flicker? Did Jameis throw it? I think it was a flea flicker, right? And then Wan'Dale was wide open, and not wide open. He ended up getting tackled, but he was open in the end zone. And then there's the Jameis trick play where I think Gunnar or Schlesky thank you, hits Winston running down. Try, thank you. Hits Winston running down the sidelines. Yeah, no, I mean that game was a mess. They gave up like 10 explosive plays in that one, which was pretty emblematic of the defense's issues down the stretch.
All right, let's get into some offseason betting lines because I'm interested in kind of taking a look just in the inspiration of strength of schedule based on projected win totals. I wanted to go through and look at all of the offseason betting lines and just kind of get an idea of where or what Vegas thinks about this team as a unit, and then the individuals of some of the players on the team. So I went through all of their like futures for next season, and I collected all the Lions centric ones. We'll start with the Super Bowl winner because this is a little bit confusing to me. In terms of the Super Bowl, the NFC North, and the NFC in terms of odds. So the Lions are plus 1,800 to win the Super Bowl. That is 18-1, tied for 11th among all teams, which is fine. But they're in the NFC, they're plus 900 to win the NFC. That's sixth. But they're behind the Packers, who are plus 750, and they're fourth. But then the Lions are the favorites to win the NFC North. So they're plus 180 ahead of the Packers at plus 190. It feels like Vegas doesn't know what's up, what's down, or maybe they're just like hedging. Yeah, hedging everything a little bit. But I kind of thought that was a little bit weird that like maybe it's the Micah Parsons effect. Maybe it's like, okay, like we know that the Packers won't have their best defensive player for X amount of games this season. Therefore, they have a better chance to win the Super Bowl, but a less better chance to win the division. But are you buying that? What are your thoughts on that?
I know the Lions kind of all offseason have been the betting favorites to win the division. That's been like a little bit of a talking point on Twitter amongst NFC North Twitter, which is a dangerous place. It's in a scary place. But
I want to go hang out on NFC South Twitter. I'm just gonna pick up a team and then just like make a burner, just like NFC South burner, and I'm just gonna follow all the fans and media from those four teams specifically.
Yeah. I don't know, because it's harder. I don't know if I can call the NFC. The NFC North is definitely one of the best divisions in football. I don't know if it's better than the NFC West because they have the Super Bowl champion and two teams that just won 12 games with the Rams and the 49ers. Of course, it's way down by the Cardinals. But if you want to make the argument for the NFC West, like I get it, like I'll hear you. But I don't think it's a question of top to bottom 1 through 4. Who's the best, I guess, most well-rounded division? It's the NFC North. I could literally see every like 1 through 4 sequence coming out, like however many possibilities there are. If I do some quick math, it's 4 times 3 times 2, which is 24. There's 24 outcomes that could happen in the NFC North this year.
Impressive.
Thank you.
Google that.
I think. there's 24 outcomes that could happen. I can literally see any of them, and we saw that last year where the division standings literally flipped upside down from 24. It was Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. Totally flipped to Bears, Packers, Vikings, Lions the following year.
Mhm.
I can see that happening again just as easily. I mean, the it's I don't know. We've talked about this before, and I know I've mentioned it to you. I think it was to you before, maybe some other writers, where I was like looking at the NFC North, and I'm like, who do I think could take a step back? Like, whose offseason left the most room open for a step back? And I was like, maybe it is the Lions. But then I say that, and it's like, maybe it's just because I'm most familiar with the Lions' warts because I pay attention to them most. You know what I mean? Where, like, versus I don't really know what's plaguing the Bears. Yes, I do. Like, it's a defensive issue for them.
Yeah, but they got a
And
motivated Dio, so
yeah, that's also an NFC North Twitter thing.
that's like a deep, 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 deep Twitter joke. That joke was not for everybody.
Yeah. So, and whatever. Center is an issue because they got to replace Dahlman or not Dahl. Who's it that retired?
Yeah,
Dahlman.
yeah,
Thank you.
Dolman.
Um. So I know they're big warts, and I guess with the Lions, I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, who's going to start at weak side linebacker? And I'm not thinking about that with the Packers. You know what I mean? I'm just like
Hmm.
Micah Parsons, Jordan Love, pretty good players.
Yeah,
So I say all this to say that yeah, I I really don't know what to feel, and which is kind of shows the inconsistent betting lines. It's like, yeah, I don't think Vegas knows how to feel about the division either.
yeah. The like I mentioned, Lions are plus 180, Packers are plus 190. So it's very close. It's basically a coin flip between
Mhm.
those two. The Bears are third at plus 320, and then the Vikings are all the way back at plus 600. That might be some good value. It would not surprise me. I feel like they, again, I haven't been paying as much attention to like who's in, who's out, like on a daily basis throughout the Vikings offseason. But yeah, ideally get a little bit better of a quarterback in there. Like I'm not expecting Kyler Murray. I've always thought that I think my opinion of Kyler Murray has always been like one tier above what the general consensus about Kyler Murray is.
I like Kyler Murray.
And so in my head, like he could be whatever like
Yeah.
and that could go both ways. Like that could go up, that could go down. This is a team, this
I mean, we've
Vikings
literally
team.
seen. I'm sorry, not to cut you off. Kyler Murray for like half of a season, like 4 or 5 years ago, was like the MVP front runner with like an undefeated Cardinals team.
Yeah, and
We've
he
seen
had
it.
Cliff Kingsbury as his coach, which I think Cliff Kingsbury is a good offensive mind, but like I think everybody would agree that he's probably not like a program runner at the NFL level. And so if you have a guy like KOC in there who we think is a pretty dang good head coach and can like adjust and help this team finish the season strong, like I think that's all the more reason to believe. Not only this team was like competing for the division in 2023, and again, it's that is a lifetime ago. But this team was competing in the division in 2023 with Nick Mullins playing the majority of its snaps at quarterback, and so they went into that Week 16
Good player.
game like long, long way to go. But like if they win that Week 16 game against the Lions on Christmas Eve in 2023, then they have another game head to head in Week 18, and they're like one Lions loss away from playing for the division in Week 18. So, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, et cetera, et cetera. But I kind of tend to believe that the Vikings can just be whatever on a yearly basis.
Also, the fact that their first three draft picks this year at 18th, 51st, and 82nd overall were used on the defensive side. It was Caleb
Mm-hmm.
Banks, the defensive tackle from Florida, Jake Galday, the linebacker from Cincinnati, and Dominique Big Citrus Orange, the defensive tackle from Iowa State. And like, I don't know, just the fact that Brian Flores now, I know they just lost Grenard, but the fact that Brian Flores gets three new top 100 pieces to mess with, like that's pretty scary to me. And I think they needed to upgrade the interior of their defensive line because it was kind of Jalen Redmond who was really good for them last year, and that's it. Like there wasn't really anybody
Mm-hmm.
else there that scared you. Now they do have like Caleb Banks, who you could think of whatever you want. Like he might have been a reach at 18. He very well might have been. Like I don't know how Caleb Banks is going to turn out. I don't know if he's going to be healthy. But the fact that it's Redmond, Banks, and Orange in the interior now, I think it's formidable, and we've seen what Flores has been able to do. So yes, to your point of They can literally be any. They could be the best defense in the NFL next year, and it's like, well, that sets a pretty high floor for you
Hmm.
as a team. You mentioned KOC compared to Kingsbury. This is a total tangent. We don't have to spend any more than 2 minutes on this. I saw people debating how many truly elite tier one offensive play callers there are, and who are they in the NFL. And I, in my head, there's three automatically: McVay, Shanahan, and I put Ben Johnson in there. Those three
Hmm.
to me are locked in tier one. And then I think the second tier, who I think I cut it off there if in 2026. But the second tier, you have Kevin O'Connell, McVay, or not McVay, Peyton. I mean Sean Payton, Andy Reid. You could totally make an argument for those guys as tier one guys, but I think I cut it off when I'm talking about truly elite, where like
Could you throw Dan Campbell in tier two?
for an off. Hmm. I think maybe I'd put him tier three behind like I think O'Connell.
Not enough time on task for him. You got to see it more.
Well, no, I just think I view like for instance like an O'Connell. We've talked about like I remember 2 years ago when it was the O'Connell versus Dan Campbell debate of who should win Coach of the Year. I still think Dan Campbell should have won Coach of the Year that year. He beat the guy twice and then won the
Yeah,
division and beat him in the most consequential regular season game of the entire season. Regardless,
maybe in NFL history.
yeah,
Like it didn't end up being that because neither team went on to
they both lost their first game.
win the Super. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like if you just cut it off there,
Yeah,
I think you could make an argument it's the most consequential victory in regular season NFL history. You go from you're playing another 14-2 team, and it's like for the division, loser has to go on the road in round one of the playoffs. And again, it's like you're still in the playoffs no matter who wins, but like,
no, yeah,
dang,
you go from first to fifth seed. But I say all that to say that when we were comparing them that year, I remember being like, I give O'Connell however much I feel good about O'Connell being a better offensive coordinator, I guess, or offensive play caller than Campbell. I think Campbell is that much better as like an overall culture setter, emotionally intelligent motivator. But I don't think either guy is bad at the other
yeah,
specialty. Does that make sense?
yeah, absolutely.
So
Completely
anyway,
agree. All right, let's get into some more of these lines here. So the win totals, uh, Lions are at 10.5. Packers are also at 10.5. I gotta double check here what it is for the Vikings because I think it's 8.5. But so for the Bears it's 9.5.
before you spread
Let me find
misinformation.
this here. Yeah, I would hate to do that. Yeah, for the Vikings it's 8.5. So again, all four of these teams are projected to be within 2 wins of each other at season's end. At that point, like the variance of the sample size just lends itself to anything being possible. So you got that. And then for the
What?
most wins and
I'm sorry. What would you say your gut right now? 10.5 for the Lions over under.
over, I think they're going to win 12 games next year. I've been telling
I
people that all offseason.
I agree. And for as much as we've quibbled with, and I think after the draft, me and you have both felt a lot better about the offseason. It's like, oh, you know what? Like in totality, given the cap limitations, I think they did a pretty good job. So I know we've quibbled with some stuff early in the offseason. I do agree with. I see the vision of what they did, and the schedule is really weak. So I do have them going over 10.5.
And you replace the offensive coordinator, like you
Yes.
fix the offensive line, like all of these little things that should have been little advantages that contributed to wins were minor to major disadvantages that cost you wins last
Right.
season, especially on that offensive line. Like your bread and butter, like the inconsistency of the Lions running game last season was breathtaking. How they would they would run for 212 yards and then 64 and
Yep.
then 184 and then 71. And it's just like, I don't expect that to happen next year. And if you're able to control not even just like the sheer production, but if you're just able to control games in
Hmm.
ways that you weren't able to last year, like that was I think the biggest thing. There were a lot of things to take from the end of that season, but it was like the entire second half of the year, it's like these guys are never controlling the terms of the game. Like
Yes.
at Philly, against Los Angeles, like they're all just like they felt like they were hanging on for dear life,
Dude, they
and I
were
don't expect
winning
that to
that
be the
game.
case.
They were winning that game against the Rams, and it was like literally like you said, hanging on for dear life. It was like you just gotta it's got to be perfect to win. And then we saw in the second half it was not.
They went for it on 4th and 3 at their own 30. Like they were desperate. And you and I have had differing opinions. I'm just always like whatever, just roll the dice. But that's just in my nature, you know. I'm a guy who goes for it.
I usually like going for it. Usually that one was just a little crazy,
but
it worked.
But it tells you like how desperate they were in that situation, or how little they believe that they can just win playing a normal football game.
Right. To add to your point, so you talked about like the change in who's leading the offense. I know Kelvin Shepard's running it back on defense, but we've talked about it before on the podcast where they seem, both him and Dan Campbell, at least they're talking like they're going to be a little bit more flexible next year. And I don't want to take any like grand assumptions away based on a 5th-round pick, a 6th-round pick, and a 7th-round pick, but Keith Abney was at his best being a zone corner, like at Arizona State. Like he was good when he did play man, but he didn't do it often because just ASU just didn't do it often. He was a good player because he was good at zone. And so that's like, and the Jimmy Rolder in the 4th round, like you would think if they're going to keep rolling with these like 3 linebacker sets, like Jimmy Rolder in his current state, he has upside to like improve as in coverage, but in his current state is a better run defender than he is than he is in coverage. So like it's like, okay, like maybe you are going to put like more nickel packages on the field, play a little bit more zone, less press man, you know what I mean? And even up front, like on the defensive line where we talked about, man, they're kind of lacking like a run stuffer as depth. Well, the opposite side of that is they're kind of not lacking in pass rush depth, and they desperately needed that last year.
They're trying to roll guys in that pass rush,
right? So I don't want to be like, oh, because their 4th through 7th round picks were this, it's going to change the whole defense. But it's like little breadcrumbs along the way where it's like, man, maybe they are really going to be a lot more flexible next year on defense, which I think would be good.
Something I do wonder about Abney is if maybe that's the reason why they didn't take him until round 5. Like,
sure.
Why they could have had him in round 4, but I completely agree. Like, I think it could go either way. And maybe we're just reading too much into a 5th-round pick in general. Could be. Most wins. The Lions are 13-1 with the 6th best odds. So again, that does not square with the 11th best Super Bowl odds at 18-1. And I'm kind of curious, like, did they just think that are they presuming injuries? Like, is that playing into this at all? That they're not going to be the same team at the end of the year that they are in the playoffs as they are in the regular season, just because that has happened a few times? Like, I'm very befuddled by this.
Yeah, and maybe they're just betting on the ceiling and the floor at the same time, right? Like it'll either go. Maybe the schedule is so bad where if the Lions are back, they'll be back like they were in 24, where it'll be 15 wins again, which is, by the way, totally a world I could see happening again. Not to shake the hornet's nest and hype everyone up. But I mean,
hey man, this is the time of year when hope is supposed to spring eternal. You know, we haven't even seen these guys at OTAs. It's like OTAs and rookie minicamp and all that stuff. It throws a little bit of cold water on everything, or it's like, wow. They're they're not really throwing the ball to Isaac Tesla. Right. Like, whereas like that those first 2 weeks after the draft, you're like, man, Isaac Tesla could be Puka in year 1, and then you go into training camp, you're like, okay, might take a little bit longer than that, you know.
It's the first day of training camp, and Blake Miller is running with the second team.
Yeah,
it's like what? Which totally could happen. Like, I mean, last year they did that with some of their young players, right? Where the veterans got the start early. But we'll see.
Yeah. MVP Goff is 16th at 35-1. He's behind Darnold at 28-1. Trevor Lawrence 22-1. Jalen Hurts 22-1. Jaden Daniels 20-1, and Brock Purdy 18-1. He's tied with Bo Nix, so he's tied for 16th, and just ahead of Kyler Murray at plus 4,000. I feel like this is a little bit of disrespect for Jared Goff.
Maybe a little bit.
Like one of these years, I feel like he might get one. Like if he's been so consistently in the mix that like if he just does this for another like 5 years, it's not like it.
His best chance.
Get one.
His best chance was 24, but it unfortunately for him died on that primetime Houston game that they won. But the 5 interceptions didn't help him, and also some of those interceptions not being his fault. But that doesn't really matter when we're talking about MVP narratives and whatnot.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of value there, but we'll see. Like I feel like again, golf is probably not an MVP that you're going to hit, but if if the operator that you're playing on offers cash outs, like I like golf at 3,500 to like, oh wow, October 18th, like golf is number one and leading leading the MVP
What would need to happen? I think
odds.
at least 12 wins. Like that's got to be the floor, right? Like
You
they
probably
got
got
to.
to win like 14 games. You probably got to be hands down, far and away the best team in the league. You probably gotta be suffering through like a major offensive injury, to be quite honest with you. To
Well,
where it's
like
like,
if
wow,
like he's
yeah,
just
like if
dragging them.
yes, and I don't even want to name because I don't even want
Yeah,
to like
yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, if somebody gets hurt and it's like, wow, okay, golf is really doing it. Plus, we'll see how like Panay Sewell over on the left side, impacts his like mental clock. Like, how does that help him? Like, that's something I'm really curious to see too because, um, just how that whole dynamic with Panay playing on the left side alters him in the pocket. Um, I don't know. You probably have to throw for like 40. I don't know. I don't even know what quarterbacks are throwing for these days.
I,
Probably have to throw for like 5,000 yards. Like he'd probably have to
it's.
lead the league, but he has led the league in passing
I was
with
gonna
the
say
with the best record in the league, and it's just like nobody's even
he
like discussing the
he has
possibility that this like could be deserved.
he has to pay the golf tax. It just is what it is. Like his style of play does not lend itself to looking like an MVP. So he has to. I think what Josh Allen won MVP 2 years ago with 28 touchdowns. Jared
Hmm.
Goff will not do that. Of
Yeah,
course, Josh Allen added a lot on the ground, which Jared
yeah,
Goff will
a little
not do.
pizzazz.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, even even outside of pizzazz, just he runs like a tank.
yeah.
Which of course Jared Goff will not do. He had 12 touchdowns on the ground that year, so I get it. Uh, but yeah, Jared Goff, I think it'll have to be like at least 35 touchdowns, which he hit in 24. He got to 37. The interceptions would have to be definitely below 10, maybe below 8,
He'd probably have to set an NFL passing record
maybe.
in some capacity. I think like you have to win 14 games and then set an NFL passing record.
Yeah,
That's probably fair.
yeah.
But like I said, if your sports books offers cash outs, do not be surprised when you look up at the end of October and it's like, man, Jared Goff is second in MVP odds right now. So, something to watch there. Another MVP bet I like a lot, and again, this is a super, super, super long shot. Richard always laughs at me for stuff like this. Gibbs is 120 to 1, which, yeah, running backs, they don't usually win MVPs. But he's the odds-on favorite to win the offensive player of the year, and like clearly they don't have any respect for Jared Goff. So maybe they'll just like I don't know if there's an inverse relationship between like disrespecting Jared Goff and respecting Jameer Gibbs. Maybe there will be in some capacity in the voters' minds. But I mean, Saquon was in the MVP conversation a couple years ago, and again, these guys don't win it. It ends up going to a quarterback. But like, if you're gonna tell me they're gonna play the season 120 times, they're going to play the 2026 season 120 times. I would bet that Jameer Gibbs wins MVP in one of them.
For the record, the reason I make fun of Nolan all goes back to we were watching a preseason game together, and he goes, I bet the over hits in this game. I said, how do you know? You can't name me 5 players who are going to play in this game
Did
because
the over hit?
neither side was
Thank you.
playing. Neither side was playing as starters. I said, name me 5
Exactly.
players that are going to be on the field in the fourth quarter, and you said it's good value. So that's why
It's
and
good value, baby.
the over did hit.
The
Um,
over did hit.
but that's why I make fun. But I mean, how many position non quarterbacks are above Gibbs? Is it? I
I don't
think
know. I really don't think it's many.
I don't
I
think so
don't know if
either.
it's like defensive players. Let
I
me let
think
me go look real quick.
Puka and Jamar might be tied with him. Bijan
Yeah,
also.
yeah, Tyler Shuck is up there. Yeah, Bijan. Again, that's another funny thing. Bijan is trailing Gibbs in Offensive Player of the Year voting. By the way, all these odds are from DraftKings. So if you're seeing a discrepancy, and be like, "He's actually not." So Bijan is a higher favorite to win MVP than Jameer Gibbs, but a lesser favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year.
Interesting. I think those two guys have a chance to. Everyone's been waiting for. At least fantasy people have been waiting for Bijan without Algier and Gibbs without David Montgomery, and we're going to get both of those things this year. I will say, from a non-fantasy perspective, it does worry me for both of them because neither of them are built like tanks, right? Like, and you gotta. assumingly they're going to have a little bit more responsibilities this year. Maybe Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't. Maybe it is just like last year, and maybe Pacheco just gets Montgomery snaps, and he's fine with that. And Montgomery wasn't fine with that. Maybe that.
And
Maybe
he
that.
can, yeah.
And
Gibbs
maybe,
can do a lot more with those carries in a season where his center didn't just retire.
right.
His offensive coordinator's not blaming everything on the players, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. But I mean, we've talked about it. This is another tangent, but a running back tangent. Like we've talked about it before. I know, like the first 2 years of Pacheco, like if that guy is back, like oh my goodness, like incredible value for Lions. Like you couldn't have a just running back better. But the last 2 years, like the efficiency's not there, and like what if he's not back to being that first guy? And it just ideally, I think in crunch time, like we've talked, I remember in 24 talking about this. In crunch time, I think Gibbs needs to be on the field, no question about it. He's one of the best players in the NFL, one of the most electric weapons in the NFL. He needs to be on the field. But like from weeks, like the first 4 months of the season, I'm like all the way in on 50-50 because I want to preserve that guy as much as I can for December and January, and then also for hopefully some years on the back end of his career. So for his sake, for the Lions' sake, I do hope that Pacheco can get back to a little bit of his pre-injury form, so Gibbs won't have to take 75% of the carries.
Mm-hmm. And then in case anybody was wondering, Amon-Ra St. Brown is 300-1 to win MVP. So
what would he need to do? 2,000 at least.
Man, 2,500. I don't even know. Like, did Calvin win Offensive Player of the Year when he set the receiving record?
That's a great question. That was Offensive Player of the Year, MVP. Those were Saints odds.
That was MVP.
MVP. When's the last time a receiver ever won MVP?
I don't know. Can you Google that?
Yeah,
I don't want to make the noise.
Yeah, I got
I'm
you.
like,
I know running back was Adrian Peterson, like 15 years ago, and then like maybe Sean Alexander before him. No wide receiver has ever won the Associated Press MVP. So Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's bogus. There was some buzz from Michael Thomas a couple years ago. He was having like an unbelievable year.
So St. Brown would need 45 touchdowns.
Yeah. By the way, I think we're gonna skip the unanswered questions to remain in this Lions offseason. We got a long ways to go here, folks. So we'll save that for next week. Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's kind of bogus that an offensive lineman can't win this, and I don't. It's not like out and out like against like prohibited, but like it's they don't get any love.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're like a rookie offensive lineman who makes like All Pro or Pro Bowl, like you should be up for Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's neither here nor there. So the Lions only drafted 2 offensive players. One of them is an offensive tackle, Blake Miller. The other one is wide receiver Kendrick Law. He's 150-1. We don't have to spend too much time on that. It's not going to happen.
What would you be more surprised at, Jared Goff MVP or Kendrick Law Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Kendrick Law Offensive Player.
100%. 100%. All right, St. Brown MVP or Kendrick Law Rookie of the Year? Kendrick Law Rookie of the Year, I think. I think I would be more surprised. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, think about everything that would need to happen.
Yeah. Or he just comes into training camp and he's just the man.
Yeah, but like at best, you're getting like wide receiver 3 snaps. You're just not putting them ahead of that.
Yeah, I know.
Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think there's actually some good value here with Derek Moore. He's plus 6,000. There's only 2 players below him on the listed odds via DraftKings. It seems kind of low. Malachi Lawrence is plus 1,800. Akeem Messidor is plus 1,600. Keldrick Falk and Cassius Howell are both plus 2,500. Now, did all 4 of those guys go first round?
Who was it? So
Falk, Howell, Messidor, and Lawrence.
Not Howell. Lawrence did to the Cowboys. Yeah, Messidor did. Falk did, but not Howell.
So I don't really understand how those guys are so much further ahead of him, and especially if you're playing opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. Like, I don't know. I feel like you got a pretty good chance to make some noise in your rookie year, and of course, like we've talked about, like DJ Wanham being present and a guy that you can trust will definitely eat into more snaps. Like he's not like there's not really a world where Derek Moore is like getting 80% of snaps next year, unless barring injury. But even then, it's a lot of snaps for a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, he plays the position to win it, right? Like it's usually like it's either got to be like a lockdown corner or a guy that just puts up sacks. And Derek Moore totally could, like you said, working opposite Hutchinson. Like what if he does throw up 11? Like yeah, then he might be the defensive rookie of the year. It's probably not likely, and the odds reflect that. But I mean, it's in the realm of
But like,
possibility.
what makes him less likely to win it than like Malachi Lawrence or Cassius Howell? That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those players probably are a little bit like.
Or Keldrick Falk, who's not a pass rusher.
Yes, agreed on Falk. I think
Howell, I can understand.
And Lawrence,
the sack
like,
totals.
Yeah, and Lawrence. Like I think both of those guys are a little bit more like electric first step guys. Like that maybe they're in the aggregate they're worse players because Moore is a better run defender. But I mean, you look at the stats. I mean, 12 sacks is 12 sacks.
That's right. Wise words. All right, we're going to finish up taking a look at these odds for the Detroit Lions right on the other side of a word from our sponsor.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back, generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service. So you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, segment 2 here at the Gridiron Gang podcast, going through some Lions offseason betting lines. We just wrapped up Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, MVP, as well as some other team totals and futures. We're going into Offensive Player of the Year now. There's quite a few lines who have listed odds. As I said, Jahmyr Gibbs leads the pack at 7-1. Amon-Ra St. Brown is tied for 10th at plus 1,800, 18-1. And then my favorite bet, maybe my favorite bet of the entire offseason. Well, actually, I don't want to say that because I have another one. And I actually brought this up at the facility a couple weeks ago, and everybody was like, you're stupid. But,
for the record, what you're about to say, you said last year.
Did I?
Yes.
And he had another good season.
He had a great season. Good.
Jamison Williams 200-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. It's not that crazy, folks. I mean,
he was ninth in receiving yards this year.
He's ninth in receiving yards, one injury away from them needing him to do a whole lot more. Can this new offensive coordinator Drew Petzing get him a little more going on the ground a little bit? Like, did they get more creative with that? Like, I could see a world where he gets to like, if again, with injuries mixed in, I could see a world where he gets to like 1,400 receiving yards and then does a ton of probably doesn't put him up there, but like, I think there's like a kind of like a clear and obvious path.
Yeah, I don't know.
At 200-1, if they played the season 200 times, do you think Jamison Williams could win Offensive Player of the Year once?
Could, yeah, would, I don't know. Because, like,
yeah, I agree with that.
Last year, when we were having this conversation, we were like, the sky's the limit for Jamo. Like, imagine what he could do. And he did have, early in the year, before Campbell took over play calling, he did have, like, some games where it just felt like he just wasn't, he wasn't targeted. Like,
he wasn't in the game plan.
Yeah. But the back half of the season, and even some game, like the Bears game in week 2, like he had a good game. Some other games in there sprinkled in as well. Chiefs, he had a good game, I recall. Went over the middle for a touchdown. Last year, apart from like 4 games, went like as good as I could have hoped. Like for JMO, and he had a great season. Like I said, top 10 in receiving yards. But I don't know if there's much higher ceiling given the other people on the team.
After Dan Campbell took over play calling last year, so this is 9 games, starting with the Commanders game. JMO was on a pace for 1,439 yards.
Yeah, but even then, he wouldn't have won Offensive Player of the Year.
Right.
So even if no, because
So let's say there somebody gets hurt. Now he picks up an extra 200 more yards.
Yeah,
and gets him up to 1,700. You know what I'm saying?
5 receivers in the NFL last year who got up to 14. Saint got up to 14 last year, and he didn't even sniff Offensive Player of the Year.
Pretty good. But Saint doesn't run the football like JMO does. He doesn't get those.
What is JMO going to
get?
At most 25 rushing attempts.
I want you to guess how many rushing yards Jameson Williams had last year.
Last year or in his career?
Last year.
1.
12.
Yeah.
On 6 carries. But, new offensive coordinator, get him going east to west a little bit. I don't know.
Even
Could be fun.
Debo Samuel at his best wasn't winning that.
200-1, man.
See,
I don't hate it.
The problem is I'm not a bettor, so you see value, and I'm just like, no, that's ridiculous.
And then Sam Laporta rounds out the Lions candidates here at 300-1. So, what do you like more, Sam Laporta at 300-1 or Jameson Williams at 200-1?
I mean, I'm not a bettor, so the 200 to 300 thing doesn't mean a lot to me. But Jameson Williams, I could see having a just game-breaking season better. I could see that more than I could see Laporta doing it.
Yeah. Defensive player of the year, Aiden Hutchinson is tied for second behind Myles Garrett. He's tied with Max Crosby and Will Anderson, 8-1. Brian Branch is 60-1. Kirby Joseph is 100-1. Shockingly enough, Jack Campbell not listed here.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a little bit surprised that Kirby is below Branch because you can make an argument of who's better, who impacts like week to week or play to play more. But Kirby gets the picks, right? And in order for a DB to win Defensive Player of the Year, they need 8 picks. Like they need to lead the league in picks. And I think Kirby is more likely to do that than Branch is. Hutchinson is interesting because Parsons is going to miss some time, so that probably, barring him coming back and just setting the league on fire, which could happen. He's probably out of the running for Defensive Player of the Year. So yeah, I think Garrett is probably like the only tier 1 guy that is definitively above Hutchinson heading into week 1.
And then I think this is my actual favorite. Coach of the year, Dan Campbell, 28-1. He's tied 17th with Liam Cohen and Kevin O'Connell. As we discussed, I think they're going to win 12 games next year, and I think they could win as many games. Like it's all on the table for them next year. Still, again, until they prove to me that it's not. And I don't know if they win 12, 13 games, like after this horrible season that they had where it was it turns out Ben Johnson was the reason all along, and then Dan Campbell just like gets him right back after one little dip year. I think you need to have that dip to actually stay in that conversation after you get the 15-2 season, because it's like anything after that is going to be less impressive unless you're again viewed as bringing a team back from the dead, which 9-8 it's not quite all the way dead. Well, it's pretty dead. You didn't make the playoffs.
My counter to that would be, it's Coach of the Year has become who overachieves the most, right? And I just think at this point, Dan Campbell has established the floor. For example, like the over-under is 10.5 wins for them next year. So even if they win 12, that's only a game and a half more than quote-unquote Vegas is expecting you to win. In 24, when Minnesota won it, they won 6.5 more games than that. And the Lions weren't even close because their over-under was much higher in 24. Like the Commanders won 5.5 over expected, Broncos 4.5, and the Lions were 4.5. So they were a game behind the Commanders and 3 games behind the Minnesota in terms of win above expectation, I guess would be the way to put it. So I just think
Mike Vrabel won last year for turn around those Patriots.
Right. So I just think like you need a team that is like expected to be under 500. And I don't even though people maybe are a little less scared of the Lions now, coming off of the season that was in 25, I don't think people are expecting the bottom to fall out.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our final topic of the day before we get to our game guest 10. Like I said, we're going to save the unanswered questions for another time. I want to talk sliding doors moments. I'm always fascinated by the what ifs in sports, and I think they are particularly pronounced in the NFL, a league with 17 games a season, because the sample sizes are so small. Every game means so much. Every little action or inaction can be so profoundly impactful. And I was trying to think of some of the biggest sliding door moments in the Campbell era. And there's a few. There's the win over the Green Bay Packers in 2022. There's obviously, Frank Ragnow coming out of retirement only to not actually be coming out of retirement. There is the game against Dallas where Decker reported allegedly, and that ends up like hurting the playoff seeding in a year. They end up making a run to the NFC Championship. the St. Brown lateral to Goff that was ruled, not ruled a touchdown. What does their season look like if that play is ruled a touchdown? Do they make the playoffs? Do they win a game?
Or no pass interference the play before, or however many plays before
Yeah.
that was.
The Aiden Hutchinson injury in 2024, what does that do to the defense? That was like the defense being the primary reason why the season was ruined. How does just that one player impact all of that?
Even you break it down to one play, like that Commanders game where they were driving to go take a 2-possession lead. They were approaching the red zone to take a 2-possession lead. Jared Goff gets sack fumbled. And then from there, like it basically all downhill.
Yeah. So I've found a game that I think has an argument to be the biggest sliding doors moment in the Campbell era.
And it's under the radar.
And it's under the radar. And so this is not including playoff wins or division clinching wins, because I think those are obvious. But this game at the time, or at least the win at the time, seemed a little innocuous. And that is in 2022. Let me find the exact week here. In 2022, the Lions had started 1-6. And on November 6th, week 9, they welcome in the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a game that, it was right after the trade deadline. Sheila Hamp just came out and gave a vote of confidence to Dan Campbell. The heat was on. They just
traded Hockenson, right?
They just traded Hockenson. I would say half the city thought that Campbell was going to get fired. And then they play the Packers. They snap a 5-game losing streak. They kickstart a 3-game win streak. And they win 8 of their last 10 to finish the season 9-8. They win that game 15-9. Aiden Hutchinson has an interception. James Mitchell has the game-winning touchdown, the only touchdown of his career. Shane Zylstra also had a touchdown in this game. It was just kind of a weird game in general. And then Aaron Rodgers comes out after the game. He says, "You can't be doing that against that team." And that pissed everybody off. But I just think it's one of the most interesting moments, because if they don't win that game, then this whole second half of the season where it's building to them potentially getting into the playoffs, it could still happen. They could still rattle off 7 out of their last 10. But no matter what, if they lose this game, they go into week 18 completely out of the playoffs. There's not that whole week of buildup based on the animosity of previous Rodgers comments and this newfound feeling of superiority that the Lions have against this team. There was a lot of chirping back and forth. There was a lot of, Deshaun Elliott was like, "We don't respect him. He doesn't respect us. Like, all good. We'll see." They spent that entire week believing that they had something to play for. They got flexed into Sunday Night Football because that game looked like it was going to be for the 7th and final playoff spot. It all felt very personal. And they end up going out and they win that game. And it not only keeps the Packers out of the playoffs, but it gives them a winning season, which was something to hang their hat on at the time. And the vibes going into the offseason were just tremendous. I know you weren't really around for this game, but right. That a lot about the 2022 season. That was a hard knock season. That was the year it all kind of turned around. And I just feel like from those two standpoints, just to start us off, I feel like those were massive, 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 kind of flashpoints for the Lions. And just looking at the butterfly effect in those two areas specifically, the momentum they gained, and then the way that it set the table for week 18 in a way that would not have been possible simply just by having an extra loss on their record.
And they picked Aaron Rodgers off 4 times that year, 3 times in the first go around, and then the one to essentially clinch it in week 18. And Aaron Rodgers does not need an introduction to the audience, but he's had 3 seasons in his career, and I'm not counting the Achilles, but he's had 3 other seasons in his career where he's thrown 4 or less interceptions the entire year. And the Lions picked him off 4 times in 1 year, that year, in 2022. So yeah, I mean, it was removing the week 18 game because we're focusing on it was week 9, you said?
Mm-hmm.
we're focusing on the Week 9 game. Yeah, just the fact that you pick him off 3 times, like that doesn't happen. Like he just doesn't do that. And it was significant. Like you said, it did set them up to have much more intrigue down the stretch than they would have had if not.
Yeah, just that game wouldn't have existed. It would have been at 1 o'clock on Fox, and they would have had like the lowest tier broadcasters, and Packers probably whatever. And so from a Packers perspective, I think there's also like a big kind of glass sliding doors moment for them, because how much different is this team's attitude going into Week 18 if they just do what they always do against the Lions and they find a way to win that game?
Mm-hmm.
If that game doesn't mean anything, and then the Packers just go and they win and it's boring and they go into the playoffs, does Aaron Rodgers leave the Green Bay Packers that offseason if they don't miss the playoffs? I think there's a strong argument to be made that he still does, because I think the Packers are ready to move on from him, but he did hold the cards in that scenario. If Green Bay wins one of those games, do they make a run that postseason? They entered the finale on a 4-game win streak. They would have played the 49ers in round 1, who ended up whooping Seattle and then went on to the NFC Championship game where Brock Purdy's arm fell off, and then the Eagles ended up going to the Super Bowl that year. But how does that change the dynamic of Aaron Rodgers and his potentially last year in Green Bay? Did they go to the Super Bowl? And then we go into the 2023 offseason, because that was the most hype that I can ever remember a team having ever, like that I've ever covered, in terms of like the offseason starts and just like, get us to Week 1, we're ready to do this thing.
Yeah.
And how is that different if they go 8-9 instead of 9-8? Even if they beat the Packers in Week 18, but it means nothing because they still get into the playoffs. That, like, how does that change the offseason? Do they still get the season opener against Kansas City without this element or the storyline that was built in Green Bay, where it was like they go from the heartbroken to the heartbreakers, and they don't really care that they were knocked out of the playoffs before that. They just wanted to play Detroit football, and they wanted to show that they were dogs, and all of this stuff that was made possible by Week 18. Like, how does that change if they don't have anything to play for in Week 9? Do they still get the season opener against the Chiefs? I don't think they do, without turning that Week 18 game into something and then winning it. Right. And then what benefits do you lose from that coming out party against the Chiefs if you don't play it in a season that they end up going to the NFC Championship?
Yeah, I mean, even with it, the team obviously had like put itself on the, I don't want to say put itself on the map, basically put itself on the map with that Chiefs win, but also like an individual like Brian Branch, like that pick 6 was insane. It was like, oh, this guy's awesome, and then he takes off. So even from an individual level, without the Week 9 win, that doesn't even happen.
Yeah. So that's all I got. I just wanted to take a quick look real quick. I thought it was interesting, and just wanted to just think about all these things.
Yeah.
Think about all these things. Because I don't think they get the KC game if they don't play that, because it was on the same network too. It was NBC. I'm sure NBC asked for it, like, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Sliding doors moments. All right, let's move on to our game of Guess 10. It is my turn to supply the players this time. And if this is your first time listening, we are going to, I have 10 players, or 10 people, I should say, players or coaches, what have you, who they all are connected by a similar thread. And after each name that I provide to Richard, he will guess what the common thread is. And so we're going to start you off.
One guess per name.
With Carson Wentz.
Are there coaches included in this, or were you just like saying that for fun?
I don't know.
I feel like that should be.
No. It could be.
Carson Wentz. I'm going to say. I'm gonna say won a Super Bowl he did not play in.
No, that is not it. CJ Stroud.
Carson Wentz and CJ Stroud. So Stroud. Did Wentz win Rookie of the Year? No, he didn't. played in the national championship in college.
No. Carson Wentz played in a national championship?
FCS, because he played at North Dakota State.
Oh, good for him. Aaron Rodgers is your next. And I will tell you, there are no coaches in this list.
Thank you.
Maybe future coaches.
Right. Aaron Rodgers. So what has CJ Stroud done in his 3 years that Aaron Rodgers also did? Because could also be from before the NFL, of course. But
Of course.
I'm gonna say
Aaron Rodgers, of course, former. I'm just gonna start narrating these guys' bios while you think. The former number 1 draft choice by the Green Bay Packers. Sat for 3 years behind Brett
from
Favre.
California.
No, good guess though. Dak Prescott. And when I say good guess, that has nothing to do with the actual answer to the puzzle.
Fair enough.
Just thought it was a good guess. Dak Prescott, Dakota Rain Prescott.
Dak. So
Mississippi
Rodgers
State
was a first
legend.
round pick. These were all first round picks except Dak, who was a 4th rounder. Only played for
by the
one.
way, just to clarify, his name is Rain Dakota Prescott, not Dakota Rain Prescott.
Only played for one team in college?
No, that is not the answer here. We are moving on to our 5th quarterback, Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. By the way, after the last times we played, after 5, you told me if it was college or pros, and I feel like you should do that again.
After 5, so after you make your guess on Justin Fields?
Sure.
Okay. Bro's trying to get a little sneak a little early. I respect it. This is a game within the game.
What could it possibly be? We're nominees for Walter Payton Man of the Year.
No. Good thought, though. And I will tell you that it's both college and the NFL.
And then the 6th player?
Desmond Ridder.
Desmond Ridder. That's interesting. Both college and the NFL. Desmond
Cincinnati Bearcat.
Only started 18 games in the pros, so something he did in the pros. Either he did it during those 18 games or he just was it. Like it's just something about him, a characteristic about him he also has and connected to the rest. What could Desmond Ridder
also
and
made
Aaron
it to
Rodgers
the college football playoff with the Cincinnati Bearcats?
What could they possibly have in common?
Got
I'm
smoked
gonna
by Alabama in the game that Jameson Williams was unable to play.
Right. I'm gonna
that was
say
for the audience, not you, by the way.
Thank you. They are all above 6'2".
No. Up next, we have Kyler Murray.
Kyler not above 6'2", famously.
That's right. Famously. One of my funnier press conference recollections was from the 2023 Combine, where Bryce Young was fielding all sorts of questions about like, how do you think your size is going to play a role at the next level? How do you think you're going to make it? He just goes, I've been this size, respectfully, my whole life. I'll figure it out.
Right.
All right. Kyler Murray, stumping this man. We've got 3 left after this.
First team all conference. Well, no, I take that back. I did not locking that in because it's both. They all have middle names.
No, that would be a terrible, terrible one.
Yeah, it would.
Terrible common thread. I will give you your next guy, and then I will tell you that this is something not necessarily. It's a statistic.
Okay.
We'll say that. Peyton Thorne.
My guy.
Your guy, Peyton Thorne.
So Peyton Thorne, as far as I'm aware, has never thrown a pass in the NFL. So
That's true.
It's a statistic, but it can't be like an on-field statistic, or it's like a preseason statistic. For those that don't know, I covered Peyton Thorne at Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Did Peyton even play in the preseason? I don't know. He did. He played 18 snaps in the preseason. I'm gonna bet it's like a combine thing. Is it some? Is it? Did they all run sub? Hold on. 40-yard dash. Did they all run a 4.7 40 or lower?
No. No. Respectfully, you're not even close. It's not just a statistic, but it's something.
This is the last player, brother.
There's 2 players.
4,
That
5,
was 8.
6, 7, 8, 9. Oh yeah, you're
right. This is maybe not something that they achieved, so to speak. Number 9 is Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford.
I think I'm gonna stump the Schwab. Stump the Silva. Stump the Silva.
So it's a stat that wasn't technically like achieved, which is just something that was.
That happened to them, per se.
That happened to them, and it also kind of involves the NFL and college.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they all weren't drafted. Peyton was undrafted.
You're gonna love the final clue. It's another one of your guys. We actually talked about him earlier in the episode.
Nick Mullins. Man,
gave you the clue early.
So now I get 2 guesses. Man, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even have any guesses left to make.
Okay, your final clue, your final player is Nick Mullins, and you should be thinking about another player. When it has to do, all of these things have to do with an interaction with another player.
So maybe they've all played with the same person. So Peyton Thorne has only been on the Bengals. So who did like Peyton Thorne? Who played on the Bengals
and college?
And like Aaron Rodgers, like Aaron
Peyton
Rodgers,
Thorne, famously teammates with Jaden Reed.
Is that the? Because
No.
so Rodgers played with Reed, but like Stroud did not. So Peyton Thorne in college. Peyton Thorne in college played at Michigan State and Auburn. NFL receivers he played with were like Keon Coleman. Cam Coleman will be in the NFL next year. Obviously, Jaden Reed, Naylor, but that doesn't make sense for some of these other guys. I don't know. They all played cross paths with. I don't know. They all played against Kenneth Walker.
You ready?
Yeah.
I stumped the Silva. All 10 of these quarterbacks have been sacked by Aiden Hutchinson.
Wow.
In their college or their NFL careers.
If it didn't have a Lions connection, I would have been like, that's stupid. Like, if it was like they've all been sacked by, I don't know, Daniil Hunter,
doubt.
I would have been like, well, that's silly. But the Aiden Hutchinson thing makes it, that's a good one.
I gave you 2 Big Ten quarterbacks, 3 Big Ten quarterbacks. Well, I think more than that, actually. But I gave you guys, CJ Stroud was sacked by Aiden Hutchinson in college, has not been sacked by him at the pros. I was hoping to throw you off with that one because then you'd be like, Aiden Hutchinson didn't play in that game. Correct. But he did sack him 3 times at Ohio State. And then Peyton Thorne was also sacked by Aiden Hutchinson in college.
Yep. At State.
There you go.
Auburn. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fun. 0 points awarded. 10 points for me. Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode. We've enjoyed having you hanging out. We're going to be podcasting all offseason long with 1 episode a week every single Thursday morning. Press that rate, review, and subscribe button. And when you wake up on Thursday mornings, there'll be a fresh episode waiting in your podcast player ready to go for your morning or afternoon commute. In the meantime, Rich, do you have anything to say to the people before we tell them goodbye?
I do not.
All right. Well, then we'll see you back here next week where I will hopefully put on a better display in Guest 10 than Richard did today. Same time, same place. Thanks for listening.